I'm Jeremy Harding. I was an OH from, I became an OH in 1969, and this is my uncle Ralph Harding. When did you become an OH?
I joined the OHs in 1943.
And you first went to the school in
1936, and I left in 1943.
Yeah. There were three generations of Harding. I'm the last. There was only one in my generation. Ralph and three of his brothers went to Allhallows, and his father and three of his brothers went to Allhallows in the turn of the last century. And they were businessmen from Honiton, and we're here today at Sidmouth, at the Victoria Hotel in Sidmouth, having had a lovely lunch. And I'm going to try and persuade Ralph now to give us a few stories about what the school was like during the war. Ralph was at Allhallows in Honiton.
Yes, I was in Honiton High Street at Bank House, and our new headmaster was Mr. George Shallow, who'd just come from Brighton, I understood, and he took over the school there, and I was only 9 years old then, and recollecting a lot of the things that went on was very difficult. I worried because I had had so many of my family in the school, and I sort of felt that I had to uphold a tradition.
A Harding
tradition, and I always bore that in me. And I had two cousins from the Angel Hotel at Honiton who were also here, the Spragues, and they were two very good sports people. And I felt, there was something that I had to do, but the school went on, and then it came to the time when the school got too big. Boys were having to walk from the station right up Station Road down to the centre of Honiton to do their lessons and go back, and that was from a private house, and the masters were living in houses up in the town and walking back down, and there just wasn't the room for staff or pupils. And no doubt this was a wonderful thing to suddenly have this big house that was available at a price that they could afford. I understood it was about 35,000. I don't know, I might be wrong on that. But the move, it was sudden. We were told that we were going to move, and that was it. And then they got together busloads of boys to come over to Rousdon by day, and we used to bring packed lunches, and we had to rake the pitches and that and get them ready and clear off the cowpats and all sorts of things to get the pitches ready to be marked out and that for the school to move. And that was when we moved in 1938. And
was the cricket pitch where it was in the later years?
I imagine there must have been a cricket pitch, because there was a water tap there in the field, and I would think possibly the Peaks had a cricket pitch there, which it's funny to have a tap in the middle of a field other than that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't put a water trough in the middle of a field, really.
Yeah.
But
so the move took place over what period of time?
Well, quite a few months, getting everything over there and that, and it was pretty bedlam, if you can understand, in dormitories and things. And then, of course, suddenly we were at war. There were boys called up that were at school. I imagine we were suddenly probably lost about 20 or 30 boys.
And masters as well.
And then we lost masters. We lost Mr. Yarko, we lost Mr. Turner, we lost Mr. Jones, and we lost Mr. Briscoe. That was ones I remember, and they were gone.
but they all came back after the war. They weren't lost forever.
No,
Maybe it would have
and
been
we
better
had
if
to
they
have
were.
the teachers that had been retired and that to take us over. We had, it was very difficult for to get staff to run the school. We were having to make our own beds.
Didn't you make your own beds before?
No, no.
Had somebody to make your beds?
Yeah, the beds were always
Nobody
made
made our
for
beds
us.
when we were there in the 60s. They
You had to make yours, did you?
well, didn't make them, just pulled them back, really. And
Yeah. No, we had to make our own beds and do a lot of cleaning and washing up around the.
Ralph is a farmer's son, so they collared you to look after the chicken.
Mr. Napier, who we only were allowed one egg a month, and of course that wasn't very much. And Mr. Napier, who was my baker house master, baker house, he decided to buy 200 chickens, and so me being a farmer's son helped look after the chickens and pick up the eggs and that. Then we had potatoes. We grew 25 acres of potatoes down at the farm.
The farm was down where the shallow building.
Yes, and Mr. Carter was the farmer there. And then I was head of the gardening club, and we had to go down and take these gangs to pick up the potatoes and things. And the actual, where the hockey pitch is, to finish with the hard one, was actually a covered big garden. And we grew all the vegetables and things in the garden, but the actual potatoes were in a field down at the farm. And
you told me a story once about there being a peach tree in the walled garden.
they're in the greenhouses, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid there was a public beating of 6 boys from Middlemas House who broke into the greenhouses and stole peaches, and Mr. Shallow had a public beating in the big hall. We all had to gather and watch it, and I can't
Who did
remember
the
all the
beating?
names of the boys, but I do more or less. I'm not going to name them. And Mr. Shallow actually broke one of the swaggers on the bottom of one of them.
Swagger's another word for a cane, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Did they have to pull their trousers down to be beaten, or were they
no, they didn't.
just as
Not
well?
in front of us.
And you all had to watch, and
Yeah, we had to watch that, and that sort of put an end to the peaches and the houses and that. But and then of course
they'd
we
probably
all-
call the police today, wouldn't they, if the peaches got missing?
possibly. And then we had to do a tower watch at 2 hours.
Oh yeah, this is the aircraft spotting, yeah.
Aircraft spotting it. This was people from the CCF. And my night used to be Monday night, and I used to go on watch with a boy called Andrews from Salisbury, who was in Baker House with me. And we were detailed. You didn't get the same watch every week. You either were on from 10 to 12, or 12 to 2, 2 to 4, or 4 to 6. And you had to plot all the airplanes coming in over the coast and plot whether they were German or British, and you got to know the sound. The German plane sounded different to the British.
They were mainly bombers, were they?
Yeah,
They were
bombers.
flying in to bomb Plymouth, I
We had
suppose.
a shot down in the bay in daylight one day, and that was quite exciting.
We could watch
We
it.
didn't actually see it, but we heard about it and heard the machine gun things. But it was a one shot down over Lyme Regis and that. And
So could you make the noise of a Dornier bomber now? Does it go?
Yes, it's a different sounding engine. It's like you know the engine of a car, don't you? And
Yeah.
the rhythm in that, and
I suppose you look at the wing outline as well. Yeah.
yeah. And of course that was it. And
You probably have an app now on your phone, wouldn't you? You'd point it and it would tell you on what sort of plane.
yeah.
Like you can identify bird song with an app. Yeah. So
And
tell us a bit.
another thing that was bad was when we were playing in the first teams, we couldn't get any petrol, so for matches we had to walk to Coombe Station, go to Axons to get on the main line, and then go travel to wherever we had to go. And we were ever so tired when we got back. You know, if you sort of it was quite a long walk from the school up to Coombe, you know.
Yeah, it's all uphill, isn't it?
Yeah. And I know we did this, but then I suppose it was what was expected of everybody. They couldn't get the petrol, and that was it, you know.
Yeah, when I went in '64, the Coombe station was still the place. I came on the train from Salisbury to Axminster, then you change and take you to Coombe.
Yeah.
Tell us about it was called the Officers Training Corps in your day rather than the
Yes, it was
CC.
the OTC. We had badges that had Officer Training Corps and then Allhallows OTC underneath. And they changed that in the war. And,
They changed it to the CC.
CCF.
Yeah.
And after Dunkirk, we had our Lee Enfield rifles taken from us
Well, by the army.
by the army, and they replaced them with American P-14s, and they took our Tommy gun and also a Browning 303 machine gun we had, and that was, and of course we did no shooting during the war at all. We didn't go to Bisley or any miniature shooting or anything, and that it was quite desperate, you know, that they were so short of everything, I suppose, after Dunkirk.
But you had you practiced with just doing army
We
rifle
did. We
drill.
went all through the motions, throwing hand grenades and taking the pin out and all that sort of thing, and you know, but we didn't actually do any shooting.
You after you left school, you were a bit too young to join up, but you were in the Home Guard.
Yeah, I joined the Home Guard as soon as I think I was 17 actually, and then I went from a medical to be called up after a while, and went to Bristol and passed out and thought I was going to be called up, but they dropped the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and they didn't call any of us up, and I stayed then with the 4th Battalion, the Wiltshire Regiment, until 1958 when they disbanded us, and that was it. I ended up as a captain, second in command of a company then.
What sort of subjects were you learning in the classroom during the war? Was it the usual things?
The usual maths, French, English language, Latin was done, general science, religious education, PE.
Was the school chapel where it was? Did you have to go to the chapel started when you went there as well? Did it in the basement?
We had to congregate for chapel in the main hall to start with until the chapel was ready. And I think the chapel was not ready till 1940 because I was confirmed in the chapel by the Bishop of Honiton, and I think I was one of the first lot. And I think that was 1940 that we were confirmed down in the proper chapel.
Yeah, I was confirmed in the chapel at Rousdon as well in about 1965, I think. Yeah. And that was the Bishop of Crediton.
Yeah.
Who was there a school chaplain there too?
Bird used to be one that I can recollect, but
Because
not,
Rousdon had its own church, didn't it?
yes. They had services still there at the church then, but we didn't go to the Rousdon church. Not,
How many times a day did you have to go to chapel?
we only went and had a quarter of an hour service in the morning, every morning. And then Sundays we had two services, one at 10:30 and another in the evening.
Yeah, I think that's what we had when I was there. I can't remember if you had to go to chapel on a Saturday or not. Did you have lessons on a Saturday?
Yes, in the morning
Yeah.
till dinner time.
Yeah. So it was lessons 6 days a week, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And games were either Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Did they allow you to smoke in school then?
Never thought of doing it really. Never got interested at all.
Did people brew their own beer or anything?
Never heard of anyone doing anything like that. No.
That sort of started after the war, I suppose.
Yeah,
That schoolboys were brewing their own beer and things. Yeah.
probably. But, we were just curtailed. We just didn't leave the building really. I mean, you had no parents could get to you because there was no petrol.
Could you go down to the school beach?
No, the beach was mined in.
What, mine? Yeah.
Yeah, the beach was mined in 1939, and we never went down near the sea from then until I left school. I don't know when they opened it up. Probably after 45, probably 46. Yeah, no, we weren't allowed anywhere near the beach.
I suppose that the beach was one of the saving graces of the school, really, wasn't it? It was great.
We had the first year, 1938, we swam in the sea.
Yeah.
And they used to put a rope out with corks and mark off the piece like that. And that was all. But then we used to get a lot of jellyfish. And some days we couldn't swim because there was swarms of jellyfish down there.
And they'd sting you. Yeah. When you were at school in Honiton itself, the school had a swimming pool then, did it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The swimming pool is now the car park down the back of the school there. Yeah. And Cowley Farm, which was my mother's brother's farm. And of course, the playing fields were right opposite there. They still use the playing fields now, don't they?